guys. So, Martin Luther King said, take the next step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. And faith isn't the belief in things that have no evidence. It's the confidence in our ability to move in the direction of freedom and happiness. And so, whatever you're working on creating, you don't have to know how everything's going to work out. You only have to take the next available step, and then the path will unfold. On my journey of self-development, I've pushed through a lot of fear, let go of a lot of addictions and attachments, but there was always this sense of not quite getting there, of not quite being enough. And I realised that there isn't a there to get to, because it's always here and now. And I realised that all along it was about learning to love who I already am and learning to be grateful for what I already have. And so when you remain in the now, there's a simplicity and a power of living in the present moment. And you can develop a state of flow. And a state of flow is where you're happy in the present and have grand visions of the future. So from this place of flow, you don't go out there into the world and say, I have to become this, because this me that I am now isn't enough, isn't sufficient. It doesn't mean that you stop desiring to grow. You still have ambition, but you don't invalidate who you already are by comparing yourself to who you want to become. Because when you do that, you invalidate who you are, and so remove the stepping stone that is actually going to take you to who you want to be. And so when we compare the self that we are now to the self that we would like to become, and judge ourselves as not being enough, we have no step to get to the next step. So who you are now is the step on the ladder that is going to take you to the next step. Now, the only way to expand success is to know that you're already a success. And if you were to ask me, well, Mike, how can I be a success? I procrastinate, I don't always take action. And I'd say, well, you're actually successful at not taking action. You've developed a skill at doing procrastination. Every internal process is a creation that we create. And we carry subconscious programs that remain dormant until they get double-clicked, either by a situation or by something that somebody says that causes you to react with an emotion. It could be anger, fear, helplessness, hopelessness. And when we're playing out these subconscious programs, all of our decision making comes from that place. We carry around issues that we have with the past that get double-clicked and we react. And you see, memories buried alive never die. They just show up again in the present in new shoes. So on this journey of taking that first step, we want to make peace with everything. Make peace with the past, make peace with who and where we are, so that we can embark on this journey without carrying things that no longer serve us. And there is a technique which I use. It's a proven technique. It's been used for the past 2 decades now. And it enables you to get in touch with some of those feelings that are rooted in the past. And by getting in touch with them, actually give you an opportunity to release and let them go once and for all. So we create a lot of psychological fear. And this psychological fear comes in the form of worry, nervousness, anxiousness, tension, dread, phobia. And this is a creation also. And it's a fear of what might happen. It's not a fear of something that's actually happening now. And we can't deal with what might happen. We can only deal with here and now. And so when we allow the mind to wander into the future, we create what's called an anxiety gap. And some people live in this place constantly in a state of anxiety over what might happen. Now, I have a memory of waking up one morning and having to go to work, and I had loads of appointments booked in that day, back-to-back appointments at the gym, and it was like, how am I going to get through this? And I realised what I was doing, and there was a deep sense of peace. I knew in that moment that I was going to go to work, I was going to look the first client in the eye, make that connection, breathe, and that I would cross each bridge as I came to it. I just knew that whatever came my way, I would handle it from this place of being in the now. And so the real fear is a fear of fear itself. You see, it's okay to be afraid. It's being afraid of being afraid is where we get stuck. We become rigid and we feel like we can't move. And in my endeavour to move from this stuck place of wanting to express myself but not knowing how, I began to research this, and I bought a remarkable book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And in that book, it's by Susan Jeffers. In that book, you'll learn that it's okay to feel fear. We all feel fear when we're pushing the boundaries, when we're stepping out of that comfort zone. So when you feel fear, anxiety, it doesn't mean you're a weirdo or there's something wrong with you. It's just a sign that you're actually pushing against your boundaries. So I began to embrace fear, and it actually became an adventure for me. Another fear that we create is a fear of criticism, a fear of what other people are going to think of me if I do this. And when we look at it closely, it's not really a fear of what other people will think. It's actually a fear of our own reaction to other people's reaction. So it's a fear of our reaction to their reaction to us. Now, one of my favourite quotes from Aristotle is, if you want to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. Because if you start to project yourself out into the world, criticism is going to come your way. Not everyone is going to get you. Not everyone is going to understand you. Not everyone is going to love you. And that's just the reality of life. And you can actually give other people the freedom to not like you, because it's their freedom to choose that. Sometimes constructive criticism may come our way. And if it's constructive criticism, it may be harsh sometimes, but we can say, okay, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll look into it. And if there are changes to be made, then I will work on making the changes. And if it's just a reflection of that other person's negative programming, we can say, look, I'm a soul on a journey of evolution. And because I'm a soul on a journey, I have many things I have yet to learn. And I will make many mistakes. But I am worthy of love from other persons, even when I make mistakes. And so you never have to reject yourself. Now, the thing with criticism is it's not even about you. It's about them. It's about what they do if they were in your shoes, but they're not. Now, when we take that first step, we take the second step, we take the third step, we're full of passion and excitement, and we think it will never end. Things start to change, and then we're met with some resistance. And this resistance comes in the form of lethargy, procrastination. There's a sense of, let's not do this now. Let's check the emails for a bit. Let's do that for an hour. Now, you see, we always procrastinate on the things that will radically change our lives. Because there's this sense of, well, who will I be if I'm a success? Can I handle success? What will other people think of me when I become this great success? So when we're met with this resistance, we have a choice. Will, determination, perseverance, or we can agree with the voices of who we used to be and go back to the old habits, back to the familiar, and back to our comfort zone. Now, both choices are valid. Don't play the game of, well, if I go back, I'm a bad person. If I push forwards, I'm a good person. Because if you do that and you are compelled to go back to what you know, you're going to invalidate yourself, you're going to label yourself a failure. Why did I go back? Can't believe I did that. And that's you removing the stepping stone. It's like being in a labyrinth. For every wrong turn, for every wrong decision you make, you gather data. You learn about yourself. You begin to learn the little games that you play with yourself to keep yourself in the comfort zone. And so it gives you more knowledge of yourself so that you can make a better, not a better, but a different choice the next time round. Because you're older and wiser. And so I want to invite you to just take a moment now to really appreciate all that you've been through. all that experience that you've already gathered, that you can now use when you leave here today, and you can use all of that experience to your advantage and do things differently than how you did them in the past. And so, the other side of this resistance is victory. And when you push through the resistance, you get to experience something new, a new territory. You get to tap into aspects of yourself that were always there, but you weren't able to get in touch with. And you'll begin to realize that you have the capacity. Again, if any of you have ever played, Sonic, Mario, those computer games, there's a boss at the end of each level. So whenever you take it to the next level, you're always going to come up against that new fear. It's like the new boss at the end of that level in which you have to overcome. But you see, in taking this journey of embracing fear, it becomes a challenge. It becomes an adventure, and you actually start to seek out situations where you feel uncomfortable, because you know that whenever you feel uncomfortable, you know that a new discovery is at the other side of that. How I came to be here today, there's a story behind that. I was on YouTube and I saw a film of Joe. He was giving a talk at university, and I thought, wow, look at this guy, man. He's getting out there in the world. He's a young guy, sharing his message. And I imagined myself doing the same. And I thought, what if that was my life? Waking up in the morning, going out there to a new city, giving a talk. And without knowing, I said yes to progression. And I didn't speak a word of this to John. We exchanged comments and showed our appreciation of each other's work. And then out of the blue, I got a phone call from Joe, and he said, "Hey Mike, how do you feel about doing a speaking event with me?" And in that moment, there was an argument with myself. There was a little argument going on with what I call the little me. And the little me wants to keep me safe. Mike, maybe you're not ready for this yet. Maybe next year, when you've built up a little bit more confidence, then it's going to be time for that. And you see, I recognised that voice. And I said to Joe, you know what, it's time for a new challenge. And so I said yes. Now, I was able to say yes because I'd said yes in the past. I'd already gathered this momentum of embracing fear and saying, come on, bring it on. Remember that motivation and inspiration comes in the doing of it. It comes in the action. Action is required for a transformation to take place. Also, be aware of what's known as the law of diminishing intent. And the law of diminishing intent is where you are full of energy, you've been inspired by something, and then you don't take action, you put it off, then doubt starts to creep in. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea after all. And then you take no action. So the deal is, when you've got the energy, when you've been inspired, you use it, you do something with it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, remember, you don't have to know all the little details, just take the action that can be taken, and you don't try to do tomorrow's work today. Do today's work today. And then when you get to tomorrow, then you can do, it will be today because it's always here and now, and just take the action that you can take. So are there any questions before my closing remarks? Go ahead, Joe.
I've got a question about overwhelm. You know, when you know you need to do some stuff, there's a list of things to do, but you've got too many things to do. How do you deal with being overwhelmed?
Okay, so my suggestion is, with honest self-inquiry, you look at all the available options and you choose the one that excites you most. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be all jumpy and jolly about it. It might be quite a serious thing that needs to be dealt with. And so, out of all the options, I'd recommend you to move in that direction with total honesty with yourself. And looking at, okay, what is my priority here? So I'd always recommend that you follow your passion. Follow what really gets you excited and gets you going. So if there is something that you weren't able to do that day, if you're following your passion and your excitement, then that thing probably didn't belong in that day. So I'm going to close with making the distinction between who you truly are and the ego. You see, who you truly are is that which notices. So whatever is coming up in your body, whether it be nervousness or thoughts, an internal dialogue where you're judging yourself, you're the one that notices the thought. You're not the thought itself. You're not the experiencer. You're not the experience. You're the experiencer. And going in this direction, it takes you into becoming the silent witness. I have over 100 free YouTube videos which you can check out. I'll be handing out my card later. But what I wanted to say was, the real you has intrinsic value. You are an indispensable part of the whole. Without you, the whole of creation wouldn't be whole. You're an indispensable part of all that is. Without you, all that is wouldn't be all that is. And if you declare yourself a progressive being and take that first step forwards, the next step, the next door will present itself to you. You will always be supported in that. But if you hang back and you do what you've always done, then the next door won't present itself to you, because what reason would it have to present itself? So you're always supported by source energy, divine mind, the universe, God, whichever label you wish to place on it, you are always supported, because for it not to support you would be for it not to support itself. And so be in the now, be at peace with who you are and where you are, and take that first step in faith. Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a question there.
You said something right at the end. You're saying if you don't do something, then that door will not present itself to you.
Mm-hmm.
So does it then mean that as individuals, there are some things that are waiting for us? All we need to do is take a certain course of action for them to...
Exactly.
Okay.
So the doors are there. It's like being in a corridor. Some areas are visible to you, but the doors are there. It's just that we're not asking for progression. So in the case of me imagining myself being a public speaker, the opportunity was always there, but I hadn't consciously said yes to it. And that's where your imagination comes into play. Because if you can imagine it and you can conceive that it's possible, then it already exists. It's like the clock, for example. 2,000 years ago, the clock, it was always there. It's just no one had figured out how to make one. So reality is it's not solid and rigid. You can play with it, and it's my belief that that's what the imagination is there for. Any more questions there?
You said about here and now. So, like, not to compare the state I am now to the state I want to be.
Yeah.
So, I am rich now, but I want to be mega rich.
Okay.
So, if I'm not going to compare, how am I going to be mega rich? Because that desire will push me to be mega rich.
Okay.
So, if I'm not to compare the state I'm now and the state I want to be, how am I going to get to the destination I want to be?
Okay, sure. Okay, so there may be times where we want to take a measurement. So from a neutral place, not judging, we might say, okay, this is my current circumstances, I would prefer them to be this way, and then take that step. But where some people get stuck is when you start to make who you are now wrong somehow and lacking somehow. So you're correct when you're in that place of appreciating who you already are. You still have that ambition and you can still have that desire to grow. And from that place, you'll find that you're doing it for the right reasons. When you invalidate who you are now, you tend to want to become more for the wrong reasons, because of to please what other people think of you and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Any more questions? Yeah, go ahead.
One more question. We were talking about memory buried alive never dies.
Yeah.
And then you said for you to take a step, you need to make peace with everything.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you do that? How do you make peace with everything?
Okay. So the thing with a lot of memories is maybe somebody may have done something to you. And it may be true that they did that to you, but when we're carrying that memory and those emotions with us, then it's us doing it to us. Then that's you doing that to you. So essentially doing your own heading, basically, over what somebody said or what somebody did to you. in the past. So there's a process that, there's a technique I use, it's called Faster EFT. And so what I do is I get you to tell me of the memory and to really get you to generate those feelings. So you almost go into like a mini trance in a way while you're telling me of this memory. And so when we get the memory, we get the feelings to come up in the body, then we tap on meridian points on the body, and what that does is it blocks the signal from the brain to the body. So while you tap in, the body is relaxing, and so it creates a new neuro association in your brain where the brain learns to associate a relaxed feeling to the old memory. And when you reach that point, you'll find that you're able to tell somebody else of this memory without it stirring up the same negative emotions. Because when you're stirring up those emotions, your decisions come from that place. And it affects our ability to think clearly. And so that's... Okay.
Any more questions? Or you?
Hello, I've just been listening to Mike Thomas speaking at this empowerment seminar, and can I say how deep he really went into personal development, helping us break those fears. One thing that he said, which I like so much, is feel the fear but do it anyway. And I recommend Mike for wherever else he wants to go, and it's been great. It's been an honor to share the stage with him. And by the way, my name is Joe Benjamin. I'm an empowerment speaker, motivator, a coach, as well as a businessman. So it's been great to be here and great to hear Mike speak on today.
Hello, I've just been listening to Mike speaking. It was awesome speaking on the next step, and I'm glad that today I now know what to do next to overcome my fears and to do what I'm supposed to be doing. Thank you.
I really liked Mike's speech. I think it was enlightening. It opened up a few things, clarified a few things that I really wanted to know. So I really enjoyed his speech, and I'll check out his YouTube videos, because he said he has some YouTube videos just to get more of what he talks about.